Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! This is a podcast based on a blog of the same name because it's like we're our own coven, so you need to know our name and our power. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out the blog at couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For at Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU, ! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays. It's easy to do if you subscribe, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are still being published once per week in mini seasons, kind of like The Walking Dead. So subscribe to the blog or the podcast via iTunes or Stitcher Radio to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows, including but not limited to Doctor Who, Downton Abbey, How to Get Away with Murder, Broadchurch, Once Upon a Time, New Girl, The Vampire Diaries, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Gotham, Supernatural, Orange is the New Black, Game of Thrones, and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. We also look back at shows that have been off the air for some time. In addition, we have multi-show and within-show series in which we cover a show or perhaps a universe of several shows over the course of several ongoing episodes, including The X-Files, the DC television universe, such as Arrow and The Flash, and the Marvel's Defenders, including Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and others. If you don't hear your show in this podcast format, check out the blog. Fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we're always seeking new panelists, so if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter, follow us at CPU Podcast, and an email address at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite and a Pinterest at CPU Podcast. Of course, you can always subscribe to the blog, our YouTube channel, our iTunes channel, or our Stitcher Radio channel and leave comments and reviews. If you like what you hear, tell your friends. Write a review or give us a thumbs up so we can grow this friendly community of couch potatoes. Today we're around the water cooler as a continuation of another brand new CPU! Podcast series. This series won't have a fixed number of episodes like other series we do. Rather, it will be ongoing as this show is still on the air. However, we're covering it over multiple episodes because it's an anthology series and actually the first of its kind in recent years. Welcome to the third episode of our American Horror Story series. Today, we're moved to the third season, officially subtitled Coven. Described as an anthology series, each season of American Horror Story is conceived as a self-contained mini-series, following a disparate set of characters and settings, and a storyline with its own beginning, middle, and end. Some plot elements are loosely inspired by true events. The third season, subtitled Coven, takes place in New Orleans, Louisiana during the year 2013, and follows a coven of witches who face off against those who wish to destroy them. Coven tells the story of the descendants of the witches who survived the Salem witch trials, who are nearly extinct and are in danger once again as they're being subjected to strange and violent attacks. A mysterious all-girls boarding school opens in New Orleans to protect and house young women who carry this unique bloodline and to keep them from the dangers of the outside world. The long-absent supreme and most powerful witch of her generation, Fiona Good, played by Jessica Lange, arrives to ensure the safety of the coven, but also to fulfill her own hidden agenda. Fiona's daughter, Cordelia, played by Sarah Paulson, teaches at the school and welcomes its newest student, Zoe Benson, played by Thaisa Farmiga, who harbors her own harrowing secret. Events reveal a long-held rivalry between the witches of Salem and the voodoo practitioners of New Orleans, as well as a historic grudge between voodoo queen Marie Laveau, played by Angela Bassett, and socialite serial killer Delphine Lalaurie, played by Kathy Bates. Other themes include witchcraft, voodoo, racism, death, and family, such as the relationships between mothers and daughters. The season is set primarily in the modern day and includes flashbacks to the early 1970s, 60s, and the 1830s. As we sit around the water cooler for our American Horror Story series of podcast episodes, we're also introducing another new development to the CPU structure. You might have already noticed that from time to time some familiar voices have taken the moderating reins to give yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, a break or a chance to be an ordinary panelist where appropriate. Well, for this series, because we're all big fans of the show and because each season is so different, we decided to rotate moderators. Thus, each new episode will feature a different moderator, although there are only 3 of us, so it will come back around again here shortly. Today's episode, Coven, will be moderated by a frequent panelist and co-member of this panel. In addition to the AHS panel, you may have also heard our new moderator's voice on the Doctor Who, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Ally McBeal, and 6 Feet Under panels, in addition to the X-Files series. Without further ado, then, I'd like to introduce Sarah as today's moderator. Take it away, Sarah.
Thank you, Kylie. Hello.
Hello.
Well, let's get started. And I think we're all pretty used to introductions by now, so we're going to just go ahead and say our names and give just a brief kind of background about how you came to watch American Horror Story, specifically Coven. And then you're going to answer the following question about what character you identify with. So I will read your choices. Are you a hardcore fan witch, ready to be the supreme of your coven, doing whatever it takes to see every episode like Fiona Good? Are you a calculated lover of this season because of its cruelty and sick, twisted plots, in the vein of the evil Marie Delphine Lalaurie? Did you happen upon this season in an accidental manner, yet stay committed to the coven, a la Zoe Benson? Do you like to nurture and educate and consider yourself a fan of this season in order to nurture your love of television in general while making it your personal mission to educate others in the amazingness of this season, like the peace-seeking Cordelia Fox? Were you drawn to this season because of its manipulative witchcraft? And stay to the end because of your self-centered need to be the best, like Madison Montgomery? Are you pure of heart and drawn to watching because of your need to see the good in everyone, like the healer Misty Day and her iconic White Witch Stevie Nicks? Were you brought into this series through sheer accident and compelled to keep watching, as though in a trance or under a spell, much like the confused and recreated Kyle Spencer? Do you consider yourself an important viewer of Coven and believe your viewership is just as vital but perhaps more disregarded than others, like Nan and Queenie? Do you hate this season and everything it stands for, but remain a watcher to enact the ultimate revenge, just like Marie Laveau? Were you drawn to Season 3 because you believe in standing up for the rules of anthology television and consider yourself a leader of this charge, such as Myrtle Snow? Or are you a hypocritical watcher, pretending to love this season while secretly hating it and all that it stands for, even while being willing to do anything to catch up on each episode, like Joan Ramsey?
Then you looked at me.
I looked at you. You go first, sir.
Because we haven't heard from you yet.
That's true. I've been here the whole time. I'm Nick. I've been on the last 2 seasons of this panel. What do I have to do? I still mess up the opening.
You said your name. How did you come to watch the series, and particularly this season, and who did you identify out of the character choices?
I came to watch this season because once I start watching a show, it's hard for me to stop. It needs about 3 or 4 seasons of crap before I stop watching a show. But this one isn't that instance. I have liked each season a lot. And I think the character description that I'm most related to was, I already forgot her name, the Sarah Paulson character, Cordelia Fox. I want people to know how good this show is and to watch it so I have more people to talk about it with. That was a sentence. And done.
Nice job, sir. Nice job.
Arguably. And I'm Kylie, and just like Nick, I watched Coven because I'd watched the first 2 seasons of the show. And I'm also a completionist. No matter what may happen, it has to be something pretty bad to get me to jump the shark. And that had not been the case yet, even despite Asylum. I didn't hate it. I just didn't like it as much as Murder House. And as far as the character descriptions, I see myself as 2 of these.
Okay.
One is Cordelia Fox because I do love I love to nurture my love of television in general and make it my personal mission to educate others about the amazingness of Coven because it is my second favorite season of the show. I also saw myself as Misty Day and her iconic White Witch Stevie Nicks because I do love Stevie Nicks and I do need to see the good in everyone. So there you go.
I agree. I think that's accurate.
Thank you.
Well, as earlier stated, I am Sarah, and I started watching the series because my husband, the aforementioned Nick, was watching it in our home, and this is the first season I watched. I went out of order, and as he started it, I sat down and said, I'm going to watch this with you. And he was like, you are? Because before you were running out of the room when I would put this on. But I wanted to get brave, so I just jumped in. So I identify most with Kyle Spencer.
Oh.
I was brought into this series through sheer accident, and I felt compelled to keep watching, almost as though I were in a trance or under a spell. And that was me. That was my journey. Let's dive right in here.
Okay.
What were your general impressions of this season?
I think I did like it more than season 2, just a little bit. I think one of the main differences in this one for me is just literally the color of it. I feel like is brighter. There's a lot more bright colors. There's a lot more just white scenescapes compared to the darkness of Murder House and the almost pitch black of Asylum, which is interesting that I would like it more than Asylum, because I like it because of the horror aspect of American Horror Story.
Well, that's an interesting point, and Ryan Murphy has stated that he wanted to do a season with glamour. That was what he stated when he was thinking about this season and conceiving it. He wanted to do a season with glamour. Do you think?
There's definitely glamour in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
They use glamour spells, too.
I think Madison is probably the most glamorous character, and she's probably one of my least favorites in the season.
I think Fiona is very glamorous.
Yeah. I mean, Fiona has a decline point, but for the time that we know her as the Supreme, and only the Supreme in charge, she's pretty glamorous.
I would agree with that.
Her luxuries.
And the house, I think, is very ornate, glamorous. They have a butler, and then eventually they have a maid, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
I don't know how glamorous it is to have a butler that can't talk.
I don't know.
It's more glamorous than houses that don't have butlers at all. Okay?
That's true. So, Kylie, what were some of your general impressions?
I really liked this season quite a lot. There were some hard parts to watch. Nick said that maybe Asylum had more horror, but I think there was a lot of horror in this season, and the horror aspect of it actually came from a lot of things that could have been real, so that's what made them even more appalling. I dig kind of the witch storylines. I've watched a lot of witch flicks and stuff, like, The Craft and Practical Magic and Charmed. I watched that whole show, for better or for worse. So I did like that piece and the girl power piece, and plus there's some really awesome actresses in this season. I mean, aside from Jessica Lange, they brought in Angela Bassett and they brought in Kathy Bates. Kathy Bates played a deplorable character, but she did a really good job doing it.
You're doing a nice segue into my next question, which was, it had some of the usual players like Sarah Paulson, Evan Peters, Lily Rabe, of course, Jessica Lange. But this is our first introduction of Angela Bassett and Kathy Bates, kind of into this American Horror Story universe. Like, dislike? Do you think they worked well? What were your thoughts?
I think they were awesome. While I like witches and witchcraft, I really also enjoy the voodoo aspect of it as well, which is more of the Kathy Bates, Angela Bassett storyline. And it was probably the darker storyline for some, especially the past, when they show the past with Kathy Bates. It's pretty rough. But I really enjoyed it. I think they fit in well, especially having watched another season with them after this and knowing that they continue on. I'm happy that they continue on, and I can't wait to see them more.
I think they did a really good job too. The nice thing, I don't know if it's a nice thing, there's definitely an undercurrent of sort of the social message here, because it's not just white magic or dark magic and voodoo. There's definitely a white versus non-white thread here. And obviously the Delphine is incredibly racist. She tortures her slaves. That's what we keep hinting around at.
Let's lay it right out there. So basically, she's based on a real woman who existed, who did some deplorable things to slaves. And her house actually still exists. Interestingly, Nicolas Cage owns that home now.
Oh, that is interesting.
I did a little research.
For a lot of money.
And frequent CPU panelist Kyle has also been to that house.
It is considered to be one of the most haunted houses in America.
Yes.
So she basically tortured people. And in fact, they discovered that she was torturing people because one of her cooks messed up and she chained her up and said later, you're going upstairs to the torture room and this cook set the house on fire to try to kill herself because she did not want to be sent upstairs because she knew terrible things happened there. So that is kind of who Kathy Bates is based on.
Yes.
I don't know for me if it was her amazing acting or the writing or just that it was based on a real person or just that it was gross, but some of the things she did and said chilled me to the bone.
Yes.
And have stayed with me
yes.
to this day.
Yes.
And Kylie agrees with me that Kathy Bates' character was just one of the most gross things about this season for us.
When we did our first 2 episodes of American Horror Story, I had to rewatch Murder House because even though I remembered it, I didn't remember it well. Asylum, I remember better. There were parts of it that really stuck with me, and once we started talking about it, it was fine. Coven, I needed no review of the season. I remember it graphically, and largely because of this character, because she was it was all so horrible and so hard to watch. And I think, because she is based on a real person, it's chilling. It's like, it's not a ghost or something that you have to suspend disbelief for. It actually happened. And you're watching it. And it's really scary. It's scary. And also, especially in light of current events. Not good.
Where does this season rank for you as far as being scary, gross, and unsettling?
Of the seasons themselves or just in general overall?
Of the seasons themselves.
I think this Murder House was disturbing. Asylum was scary in parts, but overall just disturbing. I think Coven is probably the most disturbing of the 4 I've seen. Now, I still have not, as of yet, as of this recording, seen Hotel, and that's supposedly pretty gory. But
all 3 of us have not seen Hotel yet.
Yes.
We haven't.
So I feel like it's probably the most unsettling of the 4, in terms of just sheer, I'm watching it horrified, unsettling.
Nick?
I think Asylum in concept is the scariest for me. Just the idea of being in an asylum, or especially from, one of the main characters' perspective, not that anyone belonged there, but being falsely imprisoned in there and not being able to get out really terrifies me. Ghosts and ghost stories scare me while I'm watching it, but I don't think, I hope I'm never in this house riddled with ghosts.
You wouldn't go in. That's the key to Murder.
I'd go in. Maybe not to that one, but...
So I saw online a thing that ranked the top 10 creepiest characters in American Horror Story.
Oh.
And
Which
before
all of the seasons?
Of all of the seasons.
Hotel included.
No, I'm sorry, 1 through 4. It was 1 through 4.
All right.
And I thought, Madame LaLaurie is going to be number 1 for me.
Oh.
She did not. She was not ranked number 1.
What was she ranked?
She was ranked number 10.
Of 10?
Mm-hmm. Papa Legba was ranked number 8.
He's not that creepy, though.
I didn't think so either. And if you don't go looking for him, he's not coming for you, right? I mean, he's kind of... People are making deals with him and stuff, but I don't know.
Who's that again?
He
Papa
was the
Legba,
guy...
he's in this one.
Yeah,
which
he's in this
you said
one.
you remember crisp and clearly.
I know.
So he's the one that is
He's the
keeping
voodoo guy.
Marie
Got it.
more immortal because she gives him up.
I do remember it,
Assault.
I just don't remember all the character names.
There's
Papa
one more
Legba.
set of characters that made this list from this season, and I debated this one. I debate them. Whoever wrote this list, I debate you. So coming in at number 7 was Kyle and his mom.
Well, that's creepy as hell. I'm not gonna lie, but I wouldn't say they're the scariest either.
I know.
They're not creepier than Dandy and his mom.
Yeah,
Dandy-
so much more creepy.
Dandy was ranked number 9 on this list. I don't know who wrote this list. Number 1 was Infantata, so
That is a terrible list.
It is a terrible list. I have the
I
website.
disagree.
But that for me, Madame LaLaurie is the number 1 creepiest probably person in all the things I've
Doesn't
seen.
she have a big arch and twist and... I don't know. I guess I agree with you to some extent, but I can see at the end of the season, where does she stand? I can't remember.
She goes to hell.
Yeah, she does go to hell.
She goes to
hell.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I like about this season too, is that a lot of it is wrapped up a little bit more neatly than Asylum was. Asylum felt like, but Coven had some really nice buttons, and that was one of them. it was good to see her get her just desserts in a fantasy revenge kind of way.
Well, one of the themes of this season is vengeance and revenge. And we see it with Marie Laveau and Delphine. And Madison is very vengeful. Nan and...
She is my least favorite character, by the way.
Madison?
Yes.
I think you're supposed to not like her.
That's what I said.
I know, but even still, I'm not a huge fan of Emma Roberts on this show, I gotta say.
I agree.
Yeah. Sorry, Emma, if you're listening.
Call us, Emma. We want to talk through it with you. Also,
or your Aunt Julia, just saying.
Fiona and Myrtle had their revenges going back and forth.
I liked that story arc.
I did too. And we also have Nan and Joan, which I don't think we've talked about them yet. Nan was the witch who can hear. She's clairvoyant. And Joan was the mom that lived next door.
Right.
That
the neighbor with the boy. Right?
Yes, yeah. Who ends up killing. So she had murdered her husband.
Was it Patti LuPone?
Oh,
it was... Yeah.
Yes.
Why aren't you saying Patti LuPone then?
She goes without saying. I'm kidding. I get
For
her,
the listener, Patti LuPone played the neighbor.
And I get her confused with Mayor Winningham. Mayor Winningham was Kyle's mom.
That's right.
Joan was this other boy's whose name I cannot remember. Okay. Jacob, maybe?
Or Jake.
I could look it up. And she ended up killing him because he knew the secret that she had murdered her own husband because he was having an affair.
Well, she was a very overbearing mother anyway.
She was.
So it's probably going to happen at some point.
And then Nan found out and killed her.
Yes.
So, anyway, one of the themes, vengeance and revenge. What say you of this theme?
I think it motivated the season. It was one of the major engines for the story, for all of the story arcs. And I liked it. I mean, I liked all the mechanics of this story, including that piece. I thought some were more compelling than others, but I really did not care for the Madison, Zoe, Kyle piece and kind of their back and forth and resurrecting him. That part was a little weaker to me, but the stuff between Delphine and Marie, the Fiona and Myrtle, actually that was my favorite, the Fiona and Myrtle one. And it gave Jamie Brewer a really good chunky storyline to deal with this. And, I mean, come on, bring on Patty. That's awesome. We're all theatrical here. We love her.
We do love her.
So.
We do.
I don't know what to add to that.
You don't have to add anything.
Okay. It seemed like you both looked at me.
No.
Again. Stop looking at me.
Here, you can take this one next. Another theme is race and oppression.
Oh.
And ability and disability were two big things. Like, in order for one to become stronger, Fiona had to get weaker for the other Supreme to rise. So what did you think about that? Did it work within this framework of American Horror Story?
Yeah, I think it worked. I think it worked fine. I don't know how it ties into the revenge theme as well, but
I think really only in Marie Delphine storyline. There was a lot of, I mean, it wasn't just oppression by race. There was also sort of a larger context of oppression by sex and oppression by if you're disabled and, you know, the different themes that came out. Oppression was just generally one of the themes, and I thought it worked really, really well. It usually does when you add a witchcraft storyline because that segment of the population, which does exist, they go by a different name, has been traditionally oppressed throughout history. So
yeah, they were in hiding. They couldn't let people know who they were, and that's the big twist, is that they come out of hiding.
Exactly.
And in a weird parallel to the ending of season 2 with Sarah Paulson being interviewed by the media, which was odd to me. It seems so similar to season 2.
Well, and in this season, she has a picture on the wall of her bedroom of conjoined twins. We know in season 4 she plays the conjoined twins. So, I mean, there's obviously...
Well, and Jessica Lange said, so if we go public, we'll just turn into a viral freak show.
Yes. So those are some little hints that he's put in to try to connect this season to season 4. Are there any connections you see to the past seasons, seasons 1 and 2?
I don't remember any in this season. And this connection piece, we're going to talk about probably in every episode because that's been one of the things they've said. But when I was thinking about Coven, I couldn't think of anything specifically other than these little telegraphs because they knew they were going to do Freak Show.
I know Queenie makes an appearance in Hotel. I have not viewed it yet. as Queenie. Yeah, because the hotel takes place in present day. So, and I know some characters from season 1 also make an appearance, but it's a little bit harder to tie, I think, season 3 and season 2. I mean, Asylum, I don't see any clear.
Well, no, and they're in 2 totally different locations. Asylum's in Massachusetts, this is in New Orleans, and then Murder House is in Los Angeles, so you'd have to contrive a pretty contrived way to, like, stick all these characters together. So I don't really know how they might be connected, but I'm also thinking that maybe, and this is just something we'll talk about as we go, that season 6 is going to address these connections in a big way. Or maybe kind of retroactively write them somewhat.
There's some loose connections just to the past and colonial America that are mentioned here or there, which this is the strongest tied to with the Witches of Salem. I think even Jessica Lange's character's last name is the same last name as one of the witches.
That's true. Her name's Fiona Good, and Sarah Good was a witch.
Well, and they're all of these witches, based on the story synopsis, are descended from some Salem witch. But she's the most famous, the Goods.
And Tituba, who
yes.
Queenie is descended from.
Yeah.
So, but other than, like, directly, I don't see any other connections.
Not to seasons 1 and 2.
Right. Or to 4, except them foreshadowing 4. But then when 4 happens, I don't know if anything harkens backwards to 3.
Well, no, because 4 is then set in the 50s and in Florida. So it's like, I guess connection is the term we have to explore at some point. Like, what does connection mean? I don't think it's necessarily character connection, except in Freak Show, which we'll talk about when we get to Freak Show. But I don't know. I can't recall anything from Coven that actually addresses this connection piece. I feel like it's a really good standalone season, though. Like, you came in on Coven. I think anybody could watch Coven and get a really good feel for American Horror Story.
One of the things that I really liked about Coven is it has all of these women in it who are, I'm going to say older. I don't consider them old, but they're older. You know, we have Patti LuPone, Mare Winningham, Frances Conroy, of course, Kathy Bates, Angela Bassett, Jessica Lange, and they are playing these juicy roles for women their age. Yep. And it's very empowering. My personal favorite, I think one of my favorites of this season was Frances Conroy.
Hands down.
Yeah, she's always great in all of these seasons. She has really interesting roles to play and has probably the biggest diversity of roles to play.
She does. She does. And
even though, like, I think once we get to Hotel, we'll see Dennis O'Leary start to take that away a little bit.
Dennis O'Hare.
O'Hare.
No, I was like, Dennis O'Leary.
Dennis O'Hare.
There's Dennis Leary and then Dennis O'Hare. Dennis Leary has never been on this show.
No, but Dennis, if you're listening, call your agent because we'd love to see you, Dennis Leary. Well, in his character this season, let's talk about, because he doesn't have a tongue. So
that's right.
He
refused to talk on set too, in between takes.
Yes,
he's very method.
He is very method. So he's kind of gone from having some of these roles. I mean, in season 1, he's the creepy burned.
Yep.
He's a weaselly talkative guy. He's not in 2. If he's in season 2, it's very small. I don't remember him at all in season 2.
I don't think he is,
but he spoiler, he's in season 4. So he's kind of getting some very different roles as well. How did this one measure up for you? Because we have him that can't talk,
and then real creepy job. That character should have been on that list. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of creepy people in this series.
Well, and then we have Evan Peters, whose character barely can talk either for much of the season.
Well, Dennis's character was creepier, though. I still don't think the Kyle character. The Kyle character was my least favorite for Evan Peters. He's been in all the seasons so far. It's the only one, really. But
you started out with saying all these actresses with these juicy, meaty roles, and then the few guys have little to no lines.
Yeah, exactly. So
I wonder if that ties in with the... I mean, it's about revenge. The season's theme is revenge, but there is, like, an oppression, a coming out, a speaking out type of theme as well. Yeah, on many different levels.
For those that don't have power in this season, the slaves, for example, even her daughters back in the day, because she tortures them when they don't, kind of go along with her evil doings. Those characters ultimately don't gain power necessarily in this season, but we see some characters like Lullery herself totally lose power, and in the end ends up in hell. So I think that really is kind of a theme, that power shift.
Oh, sure.
The main one being the witches, and becoming more popular, being accepted, right?
They're out of the broom closet.
And that's an interesting point too. Is that some of the leads in this? We said we had some strong older women. We also have some young high school-ish age women. I think they're all a little bit older than high school, but they were playing teenage girls who are trying to kind of find their way. What did you think about that? Was that annoying to have to watch them?
It wasn't annoying, but it wasn't my favorite part.
Yeah. I did, like I said, I did not enjoy Emma Roberts. I didn't actually enjoy the whole resurrecting Kyle storyline as much as the others. I thought it was the 5 girls were interesting insofar as they were all candidates to be the next Supreme. But as far as their antics between each other and sort of their competition and stuff, that was a little like Mean Girls plus Witchcraft, so I was about it.
Let's talk about the Supreme storyline.
Okay.
Because basically there can only be one Supreme, and when one Supreme dies, another one takes over. Mm-hmm. So we know that Fiona rose to power by killing her Supreme, which was played by Christine Abersol, who we love as well, another Broadway lady. And now, as she's getting weaker from cancer, we have all these other girls rising up. And the polls online were ranking, who's your favorite, who do you want to be the Supreme? General consensus, most people wanted Zoe.
That's who I would have picked. Basically because I found her the least irritating.
So the polls just amongst those girls? Did it include Lily Rabe's character?
It did. So it had Misty, Madison, Queenie, Nan was in there, and Zoe. So this, I think
so it didn't include Sarah Paulson either.
It did not, and that was the big spoiler, was...
I don't know how shocked I was by that when I was watching it, though.
That she was the new Supreme?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't shocking because she's Fiona's daughter, so it was kind of a...
I think...
And we kind of, good writing was hinting at, she wasn't just terrible at what she did in being a witch, she was being suppressed by her mother's overbearing nature.
Right, which means she had potential talent that could have made her...
I was surprised by it. I don't know why, but I mean, she wasn't...
If I had to pick from the ones not her, I wanted Misty.
Yeah, if Misty was included in the poll and not just teenagers, I'd have picked Misty.
I wanted Misty. I kind of thought it was going to be Zoe because we started the season, the very first scene...
She was her
and her boyfriend... and her basically killing him through sexual intercourse. So I kind of thought that was going to come full circle.
She's
she was our
universe's rogue.
Yeah, she is. She is. So I kind of thought it was going to be her.
Everything's comic book.
Yeah. But I was surprised it was Cordelia. So Cordelia had an interesting story arc, too, with her husband, and she couldn't get pregnant, and then her husband ended up being like a hunter, like a witch hunter. Mm-hmm. That is the storyline that did not stay in my mind. I had to go back, and I couldn't even remember what had happened.
I remember what happened, but I think kind of almost like the aliens in Asylum. It was one of those things that was kind of shoehorned in at a very specific moment along the season, and it didn't take very long to flesh out and wrap up. It just 2 or 3 episodes. He's a hunter, then he's not a hunter. I mean, we all knew he was duplicitous, but we didn't know exactly what that duplicitousness was until way halfway through the season.
And unlike the aliens in Asylum, people who hunt witches make sense in a season about witches.
Right.
And they wrapped it up.
Right.
Well, they were all killed.
Yeah,
right.
You can't wrap it up anybody.
Although that is another thing that happened that
Revenge.
A lot of people disliked about the season was people just kept coming back to life.
Magic. Suspend your disbelief, people. Magic.
Yeah. I know, and that surprised me because of all the seasons, these witches have magical powers. They can basically do anything they want, and we talked about in season 1 how did a ghost get someone pregnant? Well, when it's magic and we're dealing with that, you can pretty much make anything work for storylines, but that was one of the things people didn't like, was that nobody's dead, everyone keeps coming back to life.
But in a season where, and I love the Kathy Bates storyline, so I don't mind that she can't die, and where characters can bring people back to life if they didn't do it, why have that character even? I don't know. It didn't bother me.
It didn't bother me either, because what's been very clear about American Horror Story is that each season sets up its own rules. The magic was like the number 1 rule of Coven, because they were all witches, and there's literally, you can go back through all of this kind of supernatural fantasy properties that have happened over the last 30 years, and there's usually somebody coming back to life. So maybe people were upset by the number of them, but at the same time, them coming back to life, they didn't lead like happy existences when that happened. They were all tortured either internally or by the stuff around them. So yeah, they came back to life, but it was still very much horror based.
And again, it was a witch with that power for the most part,
Right.
As opposed to in season 2, the people who come back to life were brought back by aliens.
And in season 1, the people who came back to life only came back to life because they died in the house, and then were doomed to live there forever. So
right. I mean, I think that's a good point. Is that was Misty's main power, and they'd already established that. So of course, if that's
and it was pretty rare. Like, it was a pretty good reveal, and like they talked about it coming up, and I don't know. I had no problem with.
Plus, there was a lot of Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac music. I was totally okay with it.
I'll say what I hated about the Misty story is how she died, and that it was permanent for the season. Misty, I don't know. It just didn't feel like, out of all the girls having all their troubles, like she was the one who got stuck in perpetual torment. It didn't make sense for that character either, for her that to happen. But I guess it's a American horror story. So.
I think what they were going for was that she is such a caring soul, and her hell was having to bring that. Was it a frog back to life, but then having to keep killing it, and so she got so stuck on that she didn't get out in the allotted time. I'm not saying I agree with it.
I understood the writing and the story. I just didn't like it.
I didn't like it either.
Because they built up how dangerous this contest was, and isn't she the only one who really...
She's the only one that really does well, I think, right?
And she's the only one who dies. I mean,
she's the only one who dies,
What's-her-face gets brought back, but...
Zoe dies and gets brought back.
I don't know. I guess I would have wanted her to be pulled out and her to be part of the Coven at the end, as opposed to almost any other... one of those.
You mean
girls.
the council being...
The council, living in the house.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I really like her character, so I'm sad that she dies and stays permanent. But what's also understood about her character, and even Sarah said it in the character description, is she's a very pure soul. Wasn't part of her death in sacrifice to, like, help people?
Her death?
Wasn't it?
She got stuck in hell because she stayed too long.
Yeah,
and she's just being tortured over and over and over and over again for all eternity.
Yeah, she was performing the 7 Wonder, and one of them was to go to hell and come back.
Right.
But you had to get back out in the allotted time, and she didn't.
Oh, okay.
So that was
so she's being punished. I think her character is being perpetually punished. I think more and worse than any other character that had died. Maybe not more than Laurie, but it didn't sit well with me.
Maybe. Well, who knows? Who knows? Maybe her character will come back just because she's in hell. And by come back, I mean in other seasons. You know, I don't know.
Sorry, I'm not done with Misty / Lily Rabe.
Lily Rabe.
She's a contender. Her 3 characters are so friggin' different, and she's so good. I mean, in season 2, it's 2 different characters, really, before she's possessed and then possessed. Lily Rabe. But I just wanted to say that when we were talking about Frances Conroy and Dennis.
That's true. Frances Conroy just has the most so far. She has the most, like...
No, they're all 3. She's the most different, you mean?
I think so.
Because right now, her and Lily Rabe, Frances Conroy and Lily Rabe, have 3 very different characters. That you even said you forget she's in season 1 because she was so different.
Frances Conroy has 4. She's the angel, too, in Asylum.
I'm just talking about the first 3 seasons.
Oh, the first 3 seasons. I'm adding the 4th season.
Where Lily Rabe plays the same character in like 1 episode.
Exactly. And Dennis O'Hara only has 3 characters in the ones we've seen.
Yes.
So I don't know what he plays in Hotel, but yeah.
One of the online polls I found ranked Jessica Lange's characters. They called it the Lange
They're basically the same. Like, at their core, in my opinion. But I like watching it because they're very different scenarios, but there's a lot of parallels for them, and they...
Well, this one and Constance, I think, are the 2 most similar for her, for sure, because they're both Southern, they're both very into their comforts in life and things of that nature. Actually, so
they're all power hungry. They all want to be in charge. They all will step on whoever they can to get there, and they all like to drink.
They do all like to drink. She drinks a lot of fake alcohol. Or maybe
Does she sing in season 3, Jessica Lange?
She does not. So
She does a lot in season 4, and she's the only one in season 2.
true. This season kind of took off from season 2 by adding in music, but it really only did Fleetwood Mac music live, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, right. It was still Stevie singing it.
And then it ended with this sort of musical montage, music video, I don't know what we would call it, of Stevie Nicks singing Seven Wonders as the girls are preparing to do the Seven Wonders. And again, a lot of people stated that they hated Stevie Nicks in this season. She ruined it for them. I know, people, come on, America, we all love Stevie. But
You guys gotta, lighten up.
I don't even really know Fleetwood Mac that well. I only know Stevie Nicks by name, really. I recognize the songs when I saw them, but I had no problem with her being there.
Fleetwood Mac is one of my top 10 favorite groups.
Agreed.
So I welcome any, appearance by them anywhere, but if there was going to be an appearance that made the most sense, it would be on this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she was also in her songs were in Practical Magic. She's kind of associated with this sort of pagan-y culture, so I'm okay with it.
A lot of people just thought it was out of place to have that little montage video thing, but I personally enjoyed it immensely, and
These people really young and don't realize
that
montages can go in anywhere and anything.
Well, and arguably, so I was talking to Sarah and Nick beforehand, or have talked to them about, there's a whole playlist on Spotify of all the music in all the American Horror Story seasons. It arguably plays a role in all of them. Maybe a little less so in Murder House, but it definitely picks up. Lady Gaga is a lead character in Hotel. So I didn't mind it. To me, it fit, and it fit for what they were trying to do.
Well, it's a season about magic.
Right.
Magic and whimsy music.
well, we know that,
Well, whimsy is
Except-
hard.
Yeah.
It's not really that whimsical.
Misty is.
Well, she's whimsical, that's true. She does like to
But
talk
it
like
is-
Stevie.
Was anyone upset that a season with singing and Patti LuPone, that it didn't go together?
Well, we always want to hear Patty sing, but we got over it on 30 Rock, and we got over it here. But
Maybe Patty just needs a break and wants to stretch her act.
But I still, David Hyde Pierce doesn't sing. David Hyde Pierce. Neil Patrick Harris.
neither
They're not
one
the
of them
same.
sings. You're
Yeah.
not wrong, babe.
But only one of them is an American Horror Story, and he doesn't, or season 4, and he doesn't sing there either. And I feel like that's a big letdown
I think
on both cases.
Well, they could also be trying to psych people out with that a little bit, too.
Too much.
Oh, Nick has feelings. Strong feelings.
I know. Yes, we would have enjoyed singing by,
Patty.
Ms. LuPone, but
And NPH and Freak Show, which we'll talk about.
we will get to him. But really the only one that sang was Stevie. We didn't have any other cast members singing.
That's true.
So do with that what you will. I don't know if that annoyed people or not. I enjoyed it personally.
I liked it, too.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about this season that you'd like to share?
My main issue was Misty's death and the ending, parallel endings to season 2 with that interview.
Did it disturb you at all that Nan just went with Papa Legba and bye Nan?
I guess I don't
She's-
remember that.
well-
I have one more thing to bring up too, but let's go with this.
She had to sacrifice a pure soul every year. Marie Laveau did, which was Angela Bassett's character, and that kept her immortal. And the first time she did it, she gave him her own child, and then after that, she just found a baby to give him. And Queenie didn't want her to do that because it's bad. But Nan, I don't remember, did Nan annoy someone? I don't know what she did, but they basically said, let's give him Nan. She's pure. She's got a pure soul. And then when he went to take her...
Nan and Queenie had this sort of enmity between them. It wasn't as strong as Zoe and Madison.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And so Nan was like, fine, I'll go with you, and I'm sick of this anyway. Okay. That was weird to me. I don't know.
So
Didn't bother me.
I barely remember it, but her being clairvoyant, she could tell what they were trying to get her to go with him. She should have known not to.
Yeah, I think
she might have had
you had to
something-
be in the same room to hear it, to hear their thoughts. So she might not have necessarily known. But I don't know, that bothered me. But
I barely remember it, and I don't know why.
I mean, the fact of Marie Laveau's character doing that bothered me, but I guess I didn't feel as strongly for Nan, perhaps, because I don't remember like caring one way or another that happened.
It clearly didn't bother me as much as Misty's end, since that stuck with me.
What was your other thought?
The Axeman.
Oh yeah,
we didn't even get to the Axeman.
Well, yes, we did right now.
Well, tell us about the Axeman, Nick.
It's another case of something that happened in real life that they're pulling from.
Yep.
Two things, and I think I'm all right with one. He just kind of steps into the present because he's from before this, and we're like finding out about what he did, and now he's just unaged into the present. If I'm remembering,
they used the Ouija board to conjure him.
Right.
Okay, and that brought him back in a physical form.
Because of it was sort of the magical concentration within the house, and also, the Supreme is the strongest witch.
Okay.
And I think
we're all right with this.
In the history,
I'm all right with it.
he was killed by the witches of the Coven.
Yes. According to the story.
So now
yes.
the new witches of the Coven brought him back in advance.
in their story.
That didn't bother me, and also he has awesome chemistry with Jessica Lange.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in multiple seasons of the show, this one in Freak Show. So I really liked the X-Man character. I mean, I didn't like what he did, but I like that they used him and they brought him in. And it was kind of keeping that music theme alive a little bit, being that he was a jazz saxophonist. And I don't know, it didn't bother me that none of the stuff that was around magic bothered me, because the rules of magic you can suspend. You can say, like, okay, well, like, I didn't want Misty to get stuck in hell, but at the same time, she is flighty and it's magical, so I don't know.
I don't mind the magic of that. I minded... Sorry to keep going back to that. I
know, you're very pained about Misty.
I just didn't think it was, like, the right ending for her character. That's what my problem was. Not that it happened. If it happened to anyone else, if anyone else got stuck in hell, like, that would make, from trying to do the Seven Wonders, I would have been fine with. But for some reason, hers, it seemed just, like, not the right ending for her.
But there's also a real theme, without them stating it, that life is not fair. Even if you're magical, bad things happen to you, and I think that was the point that was trying to be made there. I mean, look at Zoe's character. She's got magic, but her magical power is siphoning lives through sex. I mean, what a terrible magical power that is.
That is pretty shady. First of all, you gotta get them to have sex with you, and then they're just dead. Like, that's not really very practical.
It's not practical, and
This isn't practical magic.
no, it's not.
It's not.
Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman wouldn't agree. But so none of that bothered me. I guess, I mean, I didn't want to see her die, but at the same time, I went along with the rules of the season.
Bringing it back to the Axeman really briefly, I thought they were going for, like, they had Rubber Man, Bloody Face, Axeman. They had, like, this one evil person each season. Not evil, but they had, like,
there was more.
like serial killer man with a name and a thing.
Well, I think
And then in season 4 they have Twisty
the Clown.
so.
That's kind of what I thought they were doing.
Okay, well, what I saw what they were doing is a kind of a pattern in American Horror Story, where you get almost sometimes a two-parter, sometimes a long diversion of a backstory of a character late in the season. And I feel like Piggy in season 1, it's like this comes out of nowhere, and I don't know why it's here. Axeman, at least with Axeman, he ends up with Jessica Lange. Like, there's more to it, but I felt like that was like a story separate from the witches, and then the Santa Claus killer in season 2. Like, those are the three that I saw parallels that almost feel like we're getting late in the season and we want to make sure we have more episodes, so let's take a little break to draw out the climax of the season.
Well, I think what they try to do is, horror movies kind of do that too, where it's like you understand it's about something, and then, whoa, something totally unexpected happens. And I think this is their way of trying to do that. Mm-hmm. And it works better some seasons and works not well other seasons.
Oh, I think they're better. I think it still stands out to me, but it's better than in season 1. Not that I minded the piggy story, but the character didn't end up being a ghost in Murder House, which I don't think would have made it better, but it would at least have tied in. And it wasn't something that happened at Murder House. It was just one of his patients. I don't know. It seemed more like an afterthought.
Yeah, but like you said, X-Man didn't end up staying an afterthought.
Right.
He was actually tied really well in, so I don't know. I guess I didn't really have... There were no aversions that I had, and there were no, like... I really don't understand why this happened in Coven.
I'm curious how other people feel of Myrtle's forced to be revenged upon to set an example for the new Coven moving forward. Like, she basically says, you must burn me alive. Because...
For the second time.
Yes.
I mean, Myrtle... Like my description said, everything was the greater good of the magic, and I can see that making sense. It made sense to me. Well, I didn't want to see her go.
Yeah. She also played the martyr the entire season, so that also didn't bother me. She was just playing the martyr again for the greater good. Before it was the martyr to, in her competition with Fiona, and Fiona was always victimizing her, but then it just became martyr for something a little bit more higher purpose.
She was kind of a surrogate mother to Cordelia.
She was.
And we didn't discuss the acid in the eyes or any of that.
The new eyes or the pulling her eye out.
Yeah, we didn't
to get her powers.
But that all happened. So yay.
A lot of things happened in this season.
I mean, the eyes is Myrtle went to extreme the only time, like a really horror type situation was her taking the eyes from the council. What are the 3 people or the 2 people?
The council.
The Coven Council.
And then in the end, Zoe and Queenie are on the council,
which I think are good choices for the council.
Sure.
Yeah, they seem to be the more level-headed of the new recruits. So,
online polls were largely inconclusive in the ranking of this season.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Some polls placed it at dead last among the 5. Some included hotel. Some put it smack in the middle. One poll that I found placed it at number 1.
Well, that's the thing with the anthology. It could be the best written and produced, and people could just be like, I really don't care about witches, so I'll be back for the Freak Show next year.
Most of the viewer where you could vote, most of those placed it in number 3. It basically went by the seasons in order of favorites. I don't know why. Where does it rank for you?
It's number 2 for me, hands down.
I didn't have my hands up.
I know. Murder House and Coven are, for me, of the 4 that I've watched, it goes Murder House, Coven, Freak Show, Asylum.
I think of the same order, but Asylum and Coven are closer together for me. But I like Coven more than Asylum. And I like Murder House the best.
Yeah, and a lot of people, there are people that didn't join this panel, but that do watch American Horror Story that I know, and a lot of people do not like Freak Show. Like, they're dead set against the 4th season and think that the odd number seasons is kind of the opposite of the Star Trek thing. The odd number seasons are the better ones, the even numbers are the worst ones.
For me, I really struggle with ranking these. They're all so different. I can barely compare them sometimes, but I would definitely... this one's one of my top 2. Of the 4.
Of the 4.
I guess I think 3, and then... So I guess I think Coven and Freak Show, very close for me. Asylum and Murder House, very close for me. Probably Asylum slightly less than Murder House. But that might change.
You like Coven more than Murder House? Is that what you just said?
I do.
And you like
Freak Show more than Murder House, I think.
Oh, wow.
That's really bizarre for you, because I think Freak Show is the goriest of the 4.
Of the 4,
and I
definitely.
thought that's what you liked the least about the show is the gore.
Which is to say, LaLaurie's scenes are very gory and possibly the most gory of all the 4, but Freak Show has gory, like,
all over the
all
place.
throughout the season.
But then maybe it turns into a Kill Bill thing where it's so over the top and so often you just...
You're desensitized.
Where this is such contrast to like this almost completely white, bright house and where Stevie Nicks is singing and then we're turning someone into a minotaur.
I am going to...
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. It wasn't even just torture, it was experimentation. And
our favorite character from Greek mythology was the Minotaur.
I know, but she was sewing animal parts on things. It was not nice, magically sewing. Not nice. I didn't like them. Nope. That was terrible. Horrible.
That was very vivid, and it happened in the first episode, and
and you kept watching.
Yeah.
Not because Jessica... Okay.
I will withhold my opinions on Freak Show and why I like it until we reach that podcast, so you will have to tune in if you want to hear why.
Ooh, teaser.
Oh.
To be continued, ...
I think we've covered everything, at least in my questions, so I'm going to turn it back over to Kylie for the wrap-up.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in.
Well, thanks, Sarah, for moderating. And as we've already alluded to, this is the third part of an ongoing series. So the next time we reconvene, we will be discussing Season 4 of American Horror Story, which is Freak Show. I will be returning to the moderating mic at that point. Until that time, keep listening, keep watching. As I said in the introduction, we have several more new episodes coming down the pike. As always, you'll want to make sure you follow us on couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher Radio. We have social media accounts in the quadruples. We're getting up into this whole technological aspect, and you really should keep a track of everything that we're doing because it's getting more exciting as the days goes by. And if you haven't already picked up on this, we've done some live podcasts, and there will be more live podcasts as we go. But until that time, keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned, and keep track because FX will be premiering American Horror Story very shortly. Until that time, bye-bye.